Hello, I'm Tari. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make fringe earrings like this one. Yeah, so I'm just going to be using two colors. The green obviously being the main color, and I decided to put a hint of gold here. So I'm going to put materials for this tutorial in the description box. So to start, I'm using a hoop earring. You can use any size that you like, but I think a small size like this one is quite reasonable for this type of earring. So I have threaded my needle. I'm just going to take one end and make a knot on the hoop earring. So that's one. I'm going to make another one. So the knot must sit right here at the far end of the earring. So I'm just going to make another knot, and I'm going to make it tight because I don't want this string moving. It may move a little bit, but it doesn't matter because as we go we can just push it back and it will stay in place. So there's my second knot, and now we can start putting beads. I've picked one bead and I'm going to push it all the way down to the end of the string. So this is the part that you really have to get right. So you turn your string so that the bead is facing the holes of the beads are facing up and down, not sideways. We need the bead to be sitting like this. And then now I'm just going to take my needle, put it through the hoop. I pull my string out, and at this point I'm going to take my needle, put it through the bead from the bottom. Remember, I say the holes must try and make your beads face up and down. So I'm going to put the needle through the bottom facing upwards like that, and then I'm going to pull the thread, and there you should have something like this. So I'm going to keep repeating this process because it's a bit tricky. If you don't do it right, your bead will just fall out. So I'm just going to pick another bead, let it go all the way down, and then I'm just going to pull my thread downwards so that the bead, the holes of the bead face up and down. I put my needle through the hoop from this side coming in. This is the outer, this is the in. So my needle comes in through the hoop like this, and then you should have your thread looking something like this here. Then you know you're in the right direction. It must be on the other side of the hoop. And then now I'm going to take my needle from the bottom going up. I put it through my bead. I pull my thread, and there. Now I have two beads sitting on the hoop. I'm going to do it again. I've picked my bead, push it all the way down. Oh, I made a mistake there. I picked two beads. I just need one. I'm adding one bead at a time. I hold my bead on this side, on the outer side of the hoop earring. It has to be on the outer side, and then the thread has to come in from the out onto this side of the hoop. I pull my thread, put my needle from the inner side, not this side. My needle must be on this side. Put it through the bead, I pull my thread, and there. If you don't get this part right the first time, it doesn't matter, just keep practicing until you get it right. So now you just keep repeating those steps until your hoop, until you go all the way to the end of the hoop here, until it is completely covered with beads. So I'm just going to do it one more time. There. I hope that's clear. All right. So yeah, you keep doing that until you are on this side. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep adding my beads one at a time until I reach this point. So here I am. I have covered my hoop earring with beads. It is completely covered. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my needle through these beads until I reach somewhere here. I'm going to count 12 beads, but this may differ depending with the hoop earring size that you're using. I'm going to count 12 beads because I want my fringe to be almost right here in the middle. So I'm just going to be putting my needle through these beads so that I can start making a brick stitch from about this point here. So I'm just going to take my needle. My thread is right here at the top, so I'm going to put my needle through the next bead like that. Push it down and pull my thread. Now that my thread is facing downwards, I'm just going to go through the one that is just right next to it from the bottom going up. You see that? And then I'm just going to push my needle through that bead and pull my thread. And I'm just going to pull tight so that these strings will not be loose. So now that my thread is at the top, I put my needle from the top facing down like that. So that is how it goes. I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm going to count 12 beads from where I started. When I'm on the 12th bead, then I'm going to start adding beads to make a brick stitch. There, so I'm sure this is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to do it one more time. Just going to do it one more time. There. So yeah, you just keep doing that. So I'll be back when I have done this and I'm on the 12th bead. So I've gone through 12 beads, and now I'm going to start making a brick stitch. I'm going to be using 2 beads at a time. So I've picked 2 beads. I'm going to push them all the way down. And now I'm going to be putting my needle through these threads here that are in between the beads. You see that? You see those threads sitting in between the beads? So I'm going to put my needle just underneath this thread here. I'm going to pull. You should have something like this here. And now I'm going to put my needle from the bottom. My beads are not sitting correctly. There, that's better. Now I'm just going to put my needle from the bottom going up. like that. Then I'm going to pull my thread there. That's the first step. So I'm going to pick 2 beads again and put my needle through the next line, this thread here. Okay, that is not very clear. Try and hold it like this here. Right, so the next thread here is the one I'm going to use. I'm just going to put my needle underneath that thread like that. This process is much easier if you're already familiar with the brick stitch. If you're not familiar with the brick stitch, I made a video, an earring tutorial using the brick stitch. Please refer to that video. There, and now I'm just going to put my needle from the bottom going up through the beads. Yeah, I pull my needle out and my thread, and there I'm going to pick 2 beads again, put my needle under the next thread sitting in between the beads, I pull it tight, and again my needle goes through the beads from the bottom going up. I pull my thread tight, and there I'm going to repeat the process. And I pull my thread. So yeah, you know, beading is quite simple. It's just repetition. You keep repeating the same steps. So this part here, I'm going to keep repeating the same thing until I am on the other side of the hoop. So I'm just going to demonstrate this part slowly one more time before we move to the next step. So I picked my 2 beads. I'm going to put my needle just underneath that thread. These threads here, they are the ones that we are using. So I'm just going to put my needle just underneath that thread. I pull my thread, and now I'm going to put my needle through these 2 beads from the bottom going up like that. I pull my thread and make sure everything is nice and tight. Alright, so I'm going to keep working until I'm about somewhere here. From the end, I will count 12 beads, and then I will stop adding my beads. So yeah, that is how it goes. You just keep doing that until you're somewhere about here. You count the number of beads that you want to leave free so that it can be the same as this side. Alright, so I'm on the other side, and now I'm going to start adding beads for my tassels that will come down here. I've also changed my needle. I'm using a long needle because I'll be picking a lot of beads. So firstly, I'm going to pick one gold bead, and then I'm going to pick 20 green beads. I've picked my beads. If you want to start with a different number, that is totally fine. Feel free to experiment and see how it comes out. I decided to start with 20. So now I'm going to take my needle, separate the green beads from the gold bead, and I'm going to put my needle through the gold beads and the other two beads from that brick stitch that I made, like that. And then I'm going to pull my thread. And there. And now at this point, I'm going to take my needle and put it through those two beads on the brick stitch from the bottom going up like that. The thread came out through here, and now it has to come out through the top bead here so that I can add more beads for the tassel. So I'm just going to pull my needle out through those two beads and pull like that. Now it's time to pick more beads, and again I'm starting with gold. I'm going to be starting with gold. Remember, that's the pattern that we are following. So each time when I'm picking beads for the tassels, I'm going to start with gold, then green. But this time I'm going to pick 22 beads instead of 20. I'm going to be increasing my beads as I go. I've picked my 22 beads. I'm going to separate the green beads from the gold one, and I'm going to put my needle through that gold bead and the other two beads that are already on the hoop earring, and I'm going to pull my thread. I'm going to pull it tight. So now I have two cute tassels. I'm going to turn, put my needle through the next two beads from the bottom going up, and I'm going to repeat the process. Make sure your thread is tight. Don't leave it hanging loose. So again, I've picked one bead, and this time I'm going to pick 24 beads. So I'm just going to be increasing my beads by I'm going to be adding 2 extra each time. So this time I'm picking 24. I've picked my 24 beads. So yeah, I'm going to be adding more beads to my tassels until I have 28. When I get to 28, I'm going to stop adding beads. I'll keep picking 28 beads for my tassels until I have 14 tassels which have 28 beads, and then I will start to decrease. So I'm just going to do that. I'm sure it will make better sense when I have 14 tassels that have 28 beads. So I'm just going to work on that, and I'll explain again what I mean by that. So here I am. I've made my 14 tassels, adding 28 beads at a time. Now I'm going to start reducing my beads. So the trick really is that you just count the number of beads you have left here. You remember when I started at this point, I started by adding 20 beads, then 22, 24, 26, 28. So now I just counted. When I had 4 left, I realized that if I reduce from this bead up until here, the last one I would be adding 20 beads. So here I'm going to be adding 26 beads for my tassel, then the next one 24, 22, and eventually 20, so that the sides can be the same, and in the middle, that is where we have a lot of beads. That is where I was adding 28 beads. So now I'm going to pick one gold bead and 26 green beads. So that is how it's going to go for the finishing of the tassels. I will be decreasing my numbers by 2 each time until I reach this point where I'm going to add 20 beads. I've picked my 26 beads, my 26 green beads, and I'm just going to repeat the process. I'll separate the green ones from the golden one, put my needle through the gold bead and through the other 2 beads from that brick stitch that I made. And I'm going to pull my thread. Pull it tight, make sure everything is sitting neatly. I'm going to turn by putting my needle through these 2 beads, the next 2 beads. Now I'm going to pick one gold bead and 24 green beads. I've picked my 24 beads and I'm going to add them on. There, I've added them on, and now it's time to pick one gold and 22 green beads. I've added my 22 beads and now I'm going to be picking my last set of beads, one gold and 20 green beads. I'm just adding on the last set of beads and I'll be done. There. Almost there. All I have to do now is just make a few knots on this side to secure the thread, and that's it. I'm going to be using a short needle to make my knots. So now I'm just going to put my needle underneath those threads that we used when we were making the brick stitch, and I'm going to make a knot. Pull tight. I'm going to make another one. Okay, something went wrong here. It wasn't supposed to go through there. Right, so I'm just making my second knot, and that's it. All done. You can just cut those threads and you'll have your cute earrings. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you next time. Bye.